Power dies the moment it becomes common. And yet most people today have been trained to believe the opposite. We're told that being constantly present, constantly available, constantly reachable is the key to success. That in order to be respected, we must always show up, always respond, always be there. But the truth is far darker, far more brutal. And Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. What is common is cheap. What is abundant is ignored. What is always accessible loses its value. This is not just true of gold or jewels or treasures hidden away in vaults. It is true of people, of leaders, of power itself. Think about gold for a moment. Why do human beings worship it? It is not because of its usefulness. For most of history, gold had very few practical applications. You could not build houses from it. You could not plow fields with it. And yet it was worshipped. Entire empires rose and fell in the pursuit of it. Why? Because gold is scarce. Its value came not from utility, but from rarity. The same is true for human beings in the game of power. The same is true for you. The kings of old did not walk daily among their subjects, blending into the crowd like common men. They did not let themselves be seen every hour, every day, until their presence became dull. Number. They appeared rarely, like an eclipse, sudden, overwhelming, unavoidable. And in their absence, the people whispered, speculated, and trembled. Their presence carried a weight that no constant exposure could ever achieve. Scarcity, you see, is not weakness. It is strategy. It is one of the most effective weapons in the arsenal of power because it uses human nature against itself. When you limit access to yourself, you create hunger. When you withdraw, people chase. When you ration your presence, your absence becomes more powerful than any speech, any action, any display of generosity. But here is the brutal truth. Most people cannot resist the urge to over-explain, to overshare, to overgive themselves away. They fear being forgotten. They fear being disliked. They fear the silence that comes when they step back. And so, they destroy their own authority by flooding the world with their presence. Machiavelli, however, gave us a formula. A cold, ruthless formula that still applies today. Whether you are building a business, commanding a team, shaping relationships, or ruling a kingdom of your own. His lesson was simple. Appear less. Demand more. And watch as the world treats you like a prize instead of a pawn. Think about it in your own life. The colleague who is always free, always saying yes, overlooked. The friend who is always available, always texting back instantly, taken for granted. The lover who is constantly there, constantly chasing, quickly loses allure. This is not cynicism. This is human nature. We do not respect what we can easily have. But when you withdraw, when you make yourself scarce, when you ration your attention like a king rationing the opening of his gates, suddenly everything changes. People become unsettled. They wonder, what are you doing? Who are you meeting? Why are you not answering? Their imagination begins to magnify your power. And remember this. Imagination is always more dangerous than reality, because when they cannot reach you, they cannot control you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot dismiss you. And when they cannot have you whenever they want, they begin to respect you, even fear you. Scarcity does more than protect your value. It creates an aura, an invisible force that follows you into every room. An aura that makes people tread carefully around you, watch their words, question their tone, wonder if they still have your favor. It is this aura that turns you from a person into a presence. And presence is power. But here lies the danger. Scarcity can tempt you into arrogance, into complacency, into believing your myth so strongly that you think absence alone makes you untouchable. Machiavelli warned against this illusion. Scarcity is only powerful when it is backed by substance. If you are scarce but weak, people will eventually see through the game. But if you are scarce and strong, if your skills, your influence, your reputation can support the aura, then your legend becomes unshakable. So, let us lay down the foundation for this hour. Scarcity is not just about disappearing. It is not about vanishing from the world. It is about balance, about discipline, about making your presence so rare, so controlled, that every appearance feels like an event. To master scarcity, you must walk a razor's edge, visible enough to remind people you exist, but rare enough that they crave you, approachable enough to avoid hatred, but distant enough to avoid contempt, silent enough to let imagination work for you, but decisive enough to prove your strength when it matters. This is where true authority lives. This is the first step in the Machiavellian art of scarcity. When you master it, you no longer just hold power, you radiate it. You walk into a room and everyone feels it. Not because of what you say, but because your absence has already spoken. They were waiting. They were speculating. And now your presence seals the impression. Important, untouchable, dangerous to cross. This is not charisma. This is not charm. This is strategy. And so, in this first part, you've seen why scarcity is not a weakness but a weapon. In the next part, we will go deeper. We will break down the specific disciplines Machiavelli observed and how you can use them today to build an aura that bends people toward you without you ever lifting a finger. If part 1 showed us why scarcity creates power, part 2 reveals how it is built. Scarcity is not luck. It is not arrogance. It is not some mystical aura you are either born with or not. Scarcity is discipline, a deliberate strategy crafted by rulers, leaders, and strategists across history. Machiavelli observed it in Renaissance courts, and today we can apply the same principles in business, in relationships, in social circles, in every arena where influence matters. So let us break it down into a formula. 5 steps, each one designed to weaponize absence, to transform ordinary presence into extraordinary power. The first mistake most people make is thinking they must always be visible. They attend every meeting. They respond to every message. They show up to every event. They believe visibility equals importance. But in reality, constant exposure kills authority. The first discipline is restraint. Stop being constantly visible. Stop answering every call. Stop giving yourself away like an endless supply. Your silence, your distance, your withdrawal forces people to wonder. And that wondering builds power. Imagine a ruler who disappears from his court for weeks. Nobles grow nervous. Ambassadors speculate. Gossip multiplies. Every corridor fills with whispers. Did the prince lose faith in them? Is he plotting war? Is he testing their loyalty? By the time he returns, the atmosphere is electric with fear and anticipation. He has done nothing, but his absence has done everything. Apply this to your own life. Stop attending every conversation. Stop filling every silence. When you pull back, curiosity replaces familiarity. Curiosity builds respect. A king does not open his gates for everyone. His walls are high. His guards are loyal. His court is selective. If anyone could simply walk in, his throne would lose its weight. Scarcity means guarding your time as if it were gold. Do not allow endless access to your presence. Not everyone deserves your ear. Not everyone deserves your energy. Decide carefully who gets through your gates. And when people realize your access is limited, they will approach you with caution, respect, even fear. Think of it like supply and demand. If your time is unlimited, its value collapses. But if your time is rare, it becomes a privilege. In business, this is why elite consultants charge fortunes. Not because they are always available, but because they are not. Their access is limited, therefore priceless. When you control access, people no longer treat your presence casually. They treat it as a rare gift. Scarcity does not mean disappearing forever. It means choosing your moments carefully. When you appear, it must feel intentional, meaningful, even strategic. A prince who rarely shows himself but chooses the right moments to appear transforms each appearance into an event. A single gesture becomes magnified. A single word feels like a decree. Why? Because people are starved for it. This is how scarcity turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. If you speak every hour, your words mean little. If you speak once a week, your words feel heavy. If you act constantly, people expect it. If you act rarely, people notice. Your goal is to step into view at moments that serve you, moments that create maximum impact. Do not show up by accident. Show up with purpose. This step is critical. Scarcity is not about disappearing completely. If you vanish too long, people forget you. If you vanish without strategy, they move on. The goal is not to abandon, but to intrigue. You must give just enough to maintain attention, but not enough to satisfy it. You must feed curiosity while keeping hunger alive. When people miss you, they value you more. When they wonder about you, they respect you more. This is the balance of power. Not too close, not too far. Imagine a lover who gives just enough to keep desire alive, but never enough to feel ordinary. Imagine a leader who reveals just enough to inspire loyalty, but never enough to be predictable. That tension, that uncertainty, that is where power grows. Scarcity is not just about physical absence. It is about controlling how people see you. When you are constantly visible, people see your flaws. They notice your weaknesses, your doubts, your mistakes. Familiarity strips away mystique. But when you are rare, when you choose what they see, you control the image. You can project authority. You can project confidence. You can project danger. And they will believe it, because they have nothing else to contradict it. This is how scarcity transforms perception. A man who rarely speaks is assumed to be wise. A leader who rarely appears is assumed to be powerful. A person who rarely shares is assumed to be hiding greatness. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. And imagination always magnifies reality. Machiavelli studied princes who used these 5 steps ruthlessly. They limited access so tightly that nobles fought for weeks just to be granted a single audience. They appeared rarely, forcing their subjects to speculate, whisper, obsess. Their scarcity alone transformed them into figures larger than life. And you can do the same today. In your career, your relationships, your personal reputation, you can use scarcity to elevate your worth. Stop flooding the world with yourself. Withdraw, control access, appear selectively, create intrigue, shape perception. Do this, and your presence will no longer be ordinary. It will become rare, desired, feared, and this is only the beginning. Because in part 3, we go deeper into the psychology of scarcity. Why do human beings crave what retreats? Why do we respect what is rare and despise what is abundant? Machiavelli understood this flaw in human nature, and he turned it into a weapon. We have spoken of tactics, the formula, the visible steps of scarcity, but the real battlefield lies inside the human mind. Why is it that when something is rare, it suddenly feels priceless? Why does absence ignite desire while abundance kills it? Why do people chase what pulls away and neglect what offers itself too freely? Machiavelli understood this weakness in human nature, and he exploited it. To understand the psychology of scarcity is to hold the strings of influence in your hand. And once you see it clearly, you can never unsee it. When something is everywhere, we stop noticing it. We take it for granted. The sun rises every day, and no one bows to it. Water flows endlessly, and no one praises it. But give a man one drop of water in the desert, and he will call it divine. This is the brutal truth of human attention. The more available something is, the less it is valued. Constant presence breeds boredom. Constant giving breeds entitlement. When people believe they can have you at any time, they treat you as if you are worth nothing. Think of the friend who always says yes, who is always there, who never refuses. You stop appreciating them. You stop respecting them. Why? Because they are always available. Abundance destroys mystique. Abundance kills desire. When something is missing, the mind begins to fill in the gaps. Curiosity multiplies. Desire intensifies. The imagination magnifies what is not there. A lover who disappears suddenly becomes the center of obsessive thought. A leader who vanishes from the public eye becomes larger than life in the minds of his people. Rumors spread. Fantasies grow. The absence becomes more powerful than presence ever could. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He saw princes withdraw deliberately, knowing that the vacuum of their absence would cause subjects to whisper, speculate, fear. The less people saw, the more they imagined. And imagination always paints in stronger colors than reality. This is why silence is more terrifying than shouting, why distance is more alluring than closeness, why absence, when used wisely, creates a gravitational pull stronger than any presence. Human beings are irrational creatures. We attach value not to what is useful, but to what is scarce. Diamonds are only stones, useless compared to water, yet because they are rare, they are priceless. The logic is not in the object. The logic is in the mind. The same applies to you. If you make yourself rare, if your presence is not given freely, if your attention is rationed, people will assign value to you automatically. They will assume you are important. They will assume you are powerful. They will assume you are superior. Scarcity forces respect. Scarcity commands desire. And this is why the manipulator, the strategist, the Machiavellian mind must learn to weaponize it. Here lies the paradox. The more you give, the less they want. The more you withdraw, the more they chase. This is not cynicism. This is psychology. Humans are wired to chase what retreats. The moment you take something away, people panic. They rush to hold on to it before it vanishes forever. Scarcity taps into the primal fear of loss. Think of negotiations. The seller who says, "Take your time, I'll always be here," loses power. The seller who says, "There are only 2 left, decide now," creates urgency. Scarcity triggers panic. Panic triggers action. Machiavelli knew this truth well. If you want loyalty, you must not drown people with presence. You must threaten to disappear. The fear of losing you will anchor them tighter than any gift, any kindness, any promise. When you are not always present, you stop being ordinary. You start becoming an idea, an image, a legend. People begin to tell stories about you. They exaggerate, they invent, they glorify. In your absence, you become larger than life. And here lies the greatest power of all. Myths cannot be destroyed. A man can be killed, but a myth can outlive centuries. Machiavelli himself became such a myth. He was not always present in the courts of Florence. He was exiled, ignored, dismissed. But in his absence, his ideas grew into legend. His name, centuries later, still commands fear and fascination. His scarcity transformed him into immortality. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you want to be respected, you must resist the urge to overexpose yourself. If you want to be desired, you must resist the urge to always be available. If you want to be remembered, you must resist the urge to flood people with your presence. Instead, withdraw, limit access, appear rarely. Let your silence echo louder than words. Let your absence haunt them more than your presence comforts them. Do this, and you will no longer be seen as ordinary. You will be seen as rare, as untouchable, as myth. We now understand the psychology. We understand why humans crave what they cannot have. But knowing this is not enough. The next step is to use this psychology as a weapon in negotiations, in relationships, in leadership. And that is where we go in part 4. The practical tactics of scarcity. How to apply absence not just in theory, but in ruthless, real situations. To bend people, to control outcomes, to dominate without lifting a sword. So far, we've uncovered the essence of scarcity, the formula, the psychology, but knowledge without application is powerless. Machiavelli was not a philosopher of abstraction. He was a strategist of action. He did not merely write about power. He showed rulers how to seize it, hold it, and weaponize it. In this part, we sharpen absence into a blade. We will explore how scarcity is applied in practice, not in the abstract chambers of thought, but in the ruthless fields of politics, business, relationships, and social dominance. Scarcity is not passive. Scarcity is not simply hiding. Scarcity is manipulated presence. It is the art of showing up when it serves you and disappearing when it weakens you. It is the cold discipline of making others need you more than you need them. Let us now dissect these tactics. 6 Machiavellian moves of scarcity. In a world addicted to instant response, the delay is a weapon. When you answer immediately, you signal desperation. You show you are waiting, ready, available. But when you pause, when you delay your response, your presence, your action, the power shifts. Delay makes people wait. Waiting breeds anxiety. Anxiety breeds dependence. By withholding your presence just long enough, you force others to wonder, to imagine, to chase. Think of the ruler who takes days before answering an ambassador's letter. His silence is more terrifying than his reply. His absence forces the other side to sweat. Machiavelli knew. Silence is a weapon sharper than steel. Imagine a courtier who attends every gathering and then suddenly vanishes. No explanation, no farewell. His absence creates a hole that no one can ignore. Gossip blooms, fear spreads, speculation multiplies. This is the tactic of sudden withdrawal. Appear consistently enough to be felt, then retreat abruptly. Your absence becomes the center of attention. People ask, why? What changed? What happened? And in that silence, you control their thoughts. Apply this in your life. Pull away suddenly from a friend group, from a negotiation, from a partnership. Watch as people scramble to explain your absence. Watch as they chase to restore your presence. Scarcity turns the tables. Absence alone is not enough. You must also master when and how to appear. A scarce resource is not simply missing. It appears at precise, powerful moments. A general does not show himself at every skirmish. He appears at the decisive battle. A king does not dine with peasants every day. He appears during festivals, ceremonies, coronations, moments that magnify his presence. You must do the same. Appear in moments of triumph. Appear when your presence multiplies your value. Appear when people need you most, not when you need them. This way, every appearance becomes an event, not routine but ritual. Scarcity is also about access. Who can reach you, who cannot. The answer to this question determines your aura. If anyone can approach you, you are common. If only the few, the worthy, the chosen can access you, then your value multiplies. Machiavelli advised princes to control audiences carefully. A single denied audience creates more fear than 10 granted ones. In your life, be selective. Not everyone earns your time. Not everyone deserves your presence. Make people earn the right to reach you. The harder the gate, the greater the value of passing through it. Absence is not total darkness. It is strategic shadow. You must show just enough to spark curiosity, but never enough to satisfy it. Reveal a fragment. Hide the rest. Let rumors fill the gap. Let imagination paint the picture. A leader who speaks in riddles is feared more than one who spills every detail. A strategist who reveals half his plan is respected more than one who speaks openly. The half reveal is scarcity of information. It transforms your presence into a puzzle, and puzzles attract obsession. The greatest weapon of scarcity is the return. After absence, after silence, after retreat, you reappear. And when you reappear, you do not come quietly. You return at the moment of greatest tension, greatest uncertainty, greatest hunger. Machiavelli observed this in princes who disappeared during times of peace and reappeared only in crisis. Their return was not casual. It was salvation. Their presence suddenly felt necessary, even divine. In your own strategy, disappear, but never forever. Time your return so that it feels like a rescue, a revelation, an answer to the hunger your absence created. Scarcity without return is neglect. Scarcity with return is power. But there is danger here. Use scarcity carelessly, and you risk being forgotten. Disappear too long, and others will replace you. Withdraw without intrigue, and your absence becomes irrelevant. This is why Machiavelli warned. Scarcity must be precise. Absence must be calculated. Scarcity is not neglect. Scarcity is strategy. In Part 5, we will explore the dangers, the mistakes, the missteps of scarcity. For every prince who mastered it, there were rulers who misused it and paid the price. Their names are forgotten, their power erased. And if you want to wield scarcity without destroying yourself, you must understand their failures. Scarcity is a blade, sharp, precise, deadly. But like all weapons, it can wound the hand that wields it. Machiavelli knew this. He admired scarcity as a strategy, but he also warned of its dangers. Because absence, if misused, does not create respect. It creates irrelevance. It does not inspire pursuit, it inspires replacement. Power is delicate. Too much presence, and you become common. Too much absence, and you vanish. The ruler, the leader, the strategist must know where the balance lies. This is the razor's edge of scarcity. Let us now expose the dangers, the traps into which countless rulers, lovers, and leaders have fallen. Learn from their failures so your scarcity becomes a weapon of dominance, not self-destruction. If you disappear too long, people stop wondering. They stop missing you. They simply move on. History is filled with rulers who withdrew into their palaces for years, imagining their absence would create mystique. But instead, it created irrelevance. Their people turned to new leaders. Their enemies filled the void. Their names dissolved like smoke. Scarcity must never mean vanishing without design. If absence is too long, it is not scarcity, it is neglect. And neglect kills power. Many believe they can disappear because they assume they are irreplaceable. But here is a brutal truth. No one is irreplaceable. Not kings, not lovers, not leaders, not you. If you withhold too much, people adapt. They find new sources. They build new alliances. They redirect their hunger. Scarcity can backfire if you overestimate your value. Machiavelli warned rulers. Never assume loyalty will survive your absence. People are loyal only as long as they need you. If you vanish too long, their need shifts, and so does their loyalty. Disappearing is not enough. You must disappear with intrigue. If you withdraw silently, with no aura, no tension, no controlled ambiguity, your absence is not power, it is weakness. Scarcity without mystery is invisibility. It creates no whispers, no speculation, no hunger. It is emptiness, not force, and emptiness is forgotten. To weaponize absence, you must feed the imagination. A hint of your plans, a whisper of your strength, a shadow of your presence. This keeps curiosity alive. This keeps power breathing in your absence. Scarcity can also push too far, turning admiration into bitterness. If you deny presence excessively, people begin to resent you. They feel rejected, abandoned, disrespected, and resentment transforms into rebellion. A prince who never meets his people risks being seen not as mysterious, but as arrogant. A leader who withdraws too often risks appearing indifferent. Scarcity must be balanced with calculated generosity, just enough to remind them you exist, just enough to keep loyalty intact. The art is not cruelty, but tension. Too much cruelty, and the cord snaps. A great mistake is to return after absence with nothing to offer. If your reappearance is weak, unprepared, unimpressive, your aura collapses instantly. Imagine a ruler who withdraws for months, creating hunger, fear, anticipation, only to return, timid, indecisive, unimpressive. His absence then looks like cowardice, not power. His scarcity becomes ridicule, not respect. When you return, you must return with impact, with results, with authority. Your absence must look like preparation, not retreat. Your return must justify the wait. The greatest danger is treating scarcity as a trick rather than a strategy. If you withdraw randomly, delay without purpose, deny without design, you are not Machiavellian. You are careless. Scarcity is not a game of hide and seek. It is a chess move. Every absence must serve a purpose. Every silence must create an effect. Every retreat must be designed to provoke. Without strategy, absence is emptiness. With strategy, absence is fire. Machiavelli recorded these failures. Princes who withdrew for too long and lost their thrones. Commanders who vanished from their armies and returned to mutiny. Lovers who played too hard to get and discovered their partners had found replacements. The lesson is brutal. Scarcity is powerful only when balanced. Too much burns the rope. Too little rots the cord. The strategist must stand between. Just enough absence to create hunger. Just enough presence to prevent abandonment. So how do you avoid these dangers? Never vanish without leaving a trace of intrigue. Never assume you are too important to be replaced. Never return without strength. Never let scarcity become arrogance. Never forget that absence is only half the art. Presence, when used sparingly, completes it. This balance is the true mastery. To know when to retreat and when to return. To know when to be seen and when to vanish. To know when absence creates mystique and when it creates ruin. Now we stand at the threshold. We have seen the formula. We have understood the psychology. We have sharpened the tactics, and we have studied the dangers. But scarcity is not just a tool for survival. It is not only a way to maintain value. In its highest form, scarcity becomes transformation. It becomes a path to elevation, to legend, to immortality. And that is where we go in part 6, the legacy of scarcity. How rulers, thinkers, and manipulators across history have used it not just to survive in their time, but to engrave their names into eternity. We have arrived at the end. But this end is not silence. It is culmination. Scarcity is not just a tactic to gain respect in the present. It is not just a maneuver to win negotiations or dominate relationships. Scarcity, in its highest form, is legacy. It is the force that turns rulers into myths, leaders into legends, names into symbols that echo across centuries. Machiavelli himself understood this. His presence in his own lifetime was not constant. He was not always celebrated. At times he was even exiled, dismissed, ignored. But his words, sharpened by the discipline of scarcity, survived. His absence became immortality. Today, centuries later, his name is still whispered with fear, fascination, and respect. This is the final lesson. When you master scarcity, you no longer live only in the present moment. You engrave yourself into time. Why do some names vanish from history while others are carved into stone? It is not abundance that preserves them. It is rarity. The streets of ancient Rome were filled with generals, politicians, senators. Most of their names have dissolved, forgotten, buried. But a few, Caesar, Augustus, Marcus Aurelius, remain. Why? Because their presence was not constant chatter. It was rare, deliberate, and magnified by scarcity. What they did rarely, but with immense weight. Their actions became monuments. Their scarcity turned their lives into legend. The greatest rulers were not those who exposed themselves daily, who begged for attention, who drowned their people with speeches. They were those who chose their moments, who understood that when the leader speaks rarely, every word becomes prophecy. When the leader appears rarely, every appearance becomes sacred. Look to Alexander. Look to Napoleon. Look to Genghis Khan. Their presence was not common. It was charged with myth. Soldiers followed them into impossible battles, not because they were constantly visible, but because when they appeared, it mattered. Scarcity transforms leadership from management into reverence. Even in intimacy, scarcity builds legacy. The lover who smothers with constant presence kills desire. The lover who withdraws too much destroys connection. But the lover who masters scarcity, who gives just enough and withholds just enough, becomes unforgettable. Think of the figures in your own life you still recall, the ones who were not always there, the ones who gave you glimpses, moments, sparks, but never totality. Their absence burns into memory more than constant presence ever could. Scarcity engraves them into your story forever. Reputation is not built by noise. It is built by silence, by absence, by selective exposure. The person who constantly explains themselves, constantly shouts, constantly defends, they dissolve. The one who speaks rarely, acts rarely, but with precision, they become myth. This is why scarcity is the foundation of mystique, and mystique is the foundation of influence. When you master scarcity, you no longer fear loss. You no longer fear being overlooked. You no longer fear being ignored. Why? Because you have reversed the chase. You no longer chase others. They chase you. You no longer seek validation. They seek yours. Scarcity makes you untouchable. It silences emotional noise. It transforms your presence into a weapon. It elevates your absence into immortality. Machiavelli did not write to comfort. He did not write to soothe. He wrote to awaken rulers to the cold truths of power. And one of those truths is this: attachment, abundance, constant presence. These make you ordinary. They make you replaceable. They make you disposable. But distance, restraint, scarcity, these make you feared, desired, respected, remembered. This is why the wise ruler withdraws. This is why the disciplined strategist withholds. This is why the rare man, the rare woman, commands the room without ever needing to shout. And so, here is the final command. Stop flooding the world with your presence. Stop giving yourself endlessly. Stop being common. Withdraw. Hold back. Appear rarely. Create hunger. Shape perception. And when you return with such weight, such force, such precision, that your presence becomes unforgettable. Do this, and you will not just win the moment. You will not just control the present. You will carve yourself into memory. You will transform your life into legend. You will engrave your name into eternity. This is the dangerous power of scarcity. This is the Machiavellian path to becoming untouchable.